Live, our monthly discussion with a healthcare leader and leader throughout New Jersey, telling us about how they're changing the paradigm. I'm Mariekarl, President and CEO at the partnership, and I am so happy to be joined here today by with Helen Archontou, who is the President and CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. Hi, Helen. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hello, so thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's been a long time, right? We keep passing each other, talking to each other, but finally I have you in our clutches.
Yes. We move around each other's orbits and then get a few moments together and then move on. But I think the wonderful thing about, I know I feel it for you, and I hope you feel it for me, is we're on the same journey, linked arms side by side and doing it together.
We are, and you're doing great work. But before we start with the nitty-gritty of how you changed the paradigm in the YWCA, I want to ask a silly question. So if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
Well, I always say I'd be a yoga instructor.
Okay.
Because I think that it's important to help change folks or give folks tools to be able to create a mind, an open scape for them to just be themselves, best selves, and really be present. And I guess in some ways I'm still doing that in my real work but I think I'd want to still continue that, but in some other way. So a yoga, and I do yoga, so I have a little bit of the skill ready to pull out in case I ever need to shift gears to it. But I think that it's a great opportunity to stop, pause, and just engage, read where you're at, and not always be so reactive, but be more planful. And then anyone could really jump from there. So I think I'd like to be a facilitator of that type of experience for people if I weren't doing this.
Leads into exactly what you're doing now, which is, the organization, the YWCA, helps so many people, over the years, and it's really evolved into something new. So can you tell us about that evolution? Share with us about the evolution that you brought forth.
Well, first, let me say I stand on the shoulders of all before me who brought the organization to the point that I took it over 13 years ago. And fortunately, it had a long history of doing very, very relevant and important work that was also connected to our national organization and our mission of eliminating racism and empowering women, which, despite the fact that we're over a century old, couldn't be more relevant and urgent today than it was when the organization started. Over the 13 years that I've been with the organization, I'd say it's evolved and changed from the perspective of, I think we really have deepened our mission, deepened our work in our mission, and also really focused on listening to our community around us and how they need the mission to show up for them. And as a result, when I came to the organization, we were the YWCA of Bergen County, and now we're the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. And although Bergen County is still at the core and center of our work, we've now wrapped around it, also being at the core of 4 other counties of Essex, Morris, Passaic, and Hudson as well. There was a need for the types of services that we provide in terms of being able to foster equity in our communities, being able to foster safety and security in our communities, and being able to foster empowerment.
I have a 2-part question, because I know that the YWCA has such a ambitious mission, and eliminating racism, promoting understanding and equity. But you had to start first with your board, right, in order to propagate that into the community. So can you talk about how that impacted, how that trajectory changed the YWCA under your purview, and what are some of the key programs? So it's kind of a 2-part question, because I know you had to start way in the beginning. right?
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I'd actually say there was a step before my board. I had to start with myself. I'm a white woman, obviously. If you look at me, you can, see that and I run a organization that focuses on eliminating racism, something that I personally have not experienced because of my privilege. And so my journey really had to start with examining that and understanding that, because I really couldn't bring other people along for the ride if it wasn't something that I looked at, or I couldn't bring them along for the ride in a really authentic way. And that personally is very important to me in terms of doing this type of work. So I really had to learn and unlearn, unpack a lot of, what I was raised with and and the messages that were embedded in me that really needed to be examined, and the mindsets. So I had to do the work. And from there, it really was making sure that the organization was also being authentic. When we are an organization focused on equity, but if you look around within our four walls, if the organization is not representative of the community, both in our staff and our team and our board, then that's problematic. And that was an initial focus for us, for sure, as an organization, to be able to do that work. And I think sometimes, and I spend a lot of time talking to other nonprofit leaders about this, is we all get very focused on diversifying our board, and then that somehow is supposed to create equity in our organizations. But, that is just such a small piece of a much bigger, deeper, deeper work that we have to do in our organizations. And it's not even just bringing people to the organizations who are diverse, but it's keeping them and making sure that they feel like it's a place for them, feel like that everyone who is there, that there is the potential for growth, that you're being heard, that you're being understood, that, your point of view, your life frame of reference is welcomed and respected and integrated into your experience in the organization. And since I'm externally in the world espousing that, if we're not living it within our four walls, it's really problematic. And I will say that it's been, and it will continue to be, and it has to be a evolving daily journey. As an organization, there are things that we are doing now that sometimes I wonder why we didn't do them 5 years ago. I don't know what took us so long. And there's still many things that we need to do. So we've not created any perfection, but we've definitely been on the journey, and our board is very diverse and reflective of our community. I believe our staff is more diverse, for sure. And I'd like it to continue to be more diverse. And so I think that that's important and core to our work. And our work itself, in terms of our key programs, we have our women's empowerment and our girls' empowerment programs, which are really focused on creating equality and opportunity, and breaking the barriers of the mindsets that might keep us as anyone who identifies as a woman in a box that is stereotypic, and the importance of women being able to have economic freedoms, being able to have parity across the board with, their male counterparts in every opportunity, and raising our younger girls with the emotional intelligence, soft skills, and really visions of them being able to be anything, and not just feeling like this is where I could be. And part of that is also exposing our young girls to lots of different opportunities, from STEM related jobs to law related jobs, to learning how to really use their voices and tell their stories and advocate for themselves, and so that we're raising them to be empowered women from the time that they're very young. Then, of course, there's all the group of adult women that we're raising to do those things too, because they weren't raised that way generationally. And so we're instilling that in them. We also have a whole group of programs and services that are focused on safety and security. So our Sexual Violence Resource Center, we run the state designated program for Bergen County, which is a 24-hour hotline for any sexual violence survivor to be able to call to access support at any time, as well as being able to provide short-term or long-term counseling. We also have specialized services for also male survivors, which sometimes get lost in the mix of the survivor world. Now we have a special focus for our survivors in the transgender community. The numbers and statistics of the impact of sexual violence in that community is off the charts, and yet there are not a lot of clinicians out there who understand and are able to provide support in that area. So I'm grateful that we've now been able to add that piece in. We also are one of the top childcare providers between our before and after care programs that are school-based, as well as our summer camps. And in addition to all those, really at the core from our Eliminating Racism is the work that we do around helping people look at their own experience so that they can examine race, power, and privilege, and really become engaged in the fight for racial justice and social justice for all. And then the companion piece of work and programming we do that really looks at systemic racism. So after we're able to get individuals to be able to be engaged and understand, again, their own race, their own understanding and looking at race, power, and privilege, then engaging them and looking at the systems around them so that we can create change, because we know every system that exists is fraught with white supremacy and really needs to be challenged by those who understand. And I, say this all the time, that, folks who identify as white and look like me very often don't understand that the work of eliminating racism is as important for us to be engaged in, to be able to together, support our communities of color so that we can eradicate it. It will not happen unless we step up and understand that it's hurting us all.
I agree with you 100%. And, we have such mission alignment when it comes to specifically, notably, racial justice, right? And eliminating racism. And that only comes at the rate of trusting the community, trusting us trusting ourselves, building that support and that infrastructure to help that happen. Is there any program that you'd like to illuminate? Because, we're working, our mission and our vision is committed to ensuring that we have safe, respectful births and that every family has an opportunity not only to survive, but to thrive. And like you said, the only way that we can do that is bringing forth that conversation about eliminating racism and bringing forth having those tough conversations, right? And people sitting in their discomfort and knowing that just because you're uncomfortable, that doesn't mean that you're unsafe. We're going to have this conversation that is going to bring us to a healthier place. So that's really great paradigm changing work that you're doing. But it's not easy. So how
it is culture shift for sure. Excuse me, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it is culture shift for sure. I think the thing about the YWCA, there's something for anyone, any age and stage in their life. We have a program for you. We have programs that support women coming out of the system from reentry to be able to be more successful and returning into our communities. We have programs that help women in the workforce. We have programs that help women start small businesses and keep them strong. We have programs to work in school districts to be able to help our elementary school teachers proactively talk about race in the classrooms. We have programs to have mental health clinicians think about racial and cultural empathy, because most clinicians and most teachers, quite frankly, look more like me, yet those that they're working with likely do not statistically when we look at the numbers here in New Jersey. So those are important programs. But the one I think I'd like to highlight is really one that's coming that I'm very proud of, and is the Center for Racial Healing that's on its way. And I don't even know if you know that it's on its way, but we were very fortunate through a tremendous amount of advocacy that we did last year. And a lot of it was really fueled by a campaign that we focused on last year that had to do with hate crimes in New Jersey, or hate incidents, I should say, that have been on a significant rise and really impacting our Black communities, our API communities. our LGBTQ plus communities, the anti-Semitism, and we're just seeing an off the chart explosion here in New Jersey. And many of those are incidents and not crimes. And as a result, folks are not able to access the mental health supports and services needed. And most people are not aware of what racial trauma is and how statistically, again, if you look at the numbers in New Jersey, how many people are living with it and impacted by it every single day. And I was really educated on, I've obviously been doing this work for more than a decade now. And so I've had to go through my own learning. I've been generously educated by so many around that have, shown me and explained racial trauma to me. But again, we don't seem to have any programs that are out there to really support anyone who's going through it. And we know that mental health services are not easily accessible or funded either. So we did advocate, and gratefully Assemblywoman Sumter and Senator Johnson came forward and helped us get an appropriation in the state budget for $2 million that will be starting the first clinical racial trauma program here in the state of New Jersey. We will have trained therapists to be able to provide racial trauma clinical support at no charge in the community.
That is an amazing feat, Helen. Congratulations. And that really goes hand in hand with the work that we are doing in terms of attempting to making sure families, women, children, and their families are thriving, especially when you look at the health disparities.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about weathering, right? Weathering is part of racial trauma, and I'm happy that you were able to put a name to that and have specific scaffolding and support for that, because people don't understand weathering. They don't understand how different groups and ethnic groups manifest different traumas. Why are you angry? Why do you have anxiety? What does it look like specifically for this community and that community? And it's not homogeneous. It's not the same for every group. So that is really exciting. And I'm sorry, when does it come to fruition?
Well, we're just waiting for all the, funds to come through. And so I'm hoping and optimistic that by early next year, we'll be able to start creating the program. I'd also like to say that in addition to being able to start the program, which as you shared, I think the power of it is, when we look at all the important organizations that are out there doing work like yours that is so focused on health equity, and others in the organization, even if they're focused on environmental justice or wherever they are, racial trauma impacts all of these different areas. And so it cuts across so many of our challenges we have as society to be able to hopefully eradicate something that's at the core, help lift it up, help bring attention to it, help put a name to it for so many people that look like me who maybe have no understanding that it exists and how it plays itself out, in our society. And quite frankly, there's many people of color who don't know that they're living with it or how it's playing out in their life. And so this is a tremendous opportunity. So not only to provide that clinical support, but we will also be working with all of our schools of social work in the state of New Jersey to create a certificate in racial trauma so we can graduate mental health professionals who actually understand racial trauma and can support our communities of color through this reality and this existence, because right now you have a whole, and I'm a social worker by training, there's a whole bunch of us around and we have not been trained in, how to support our communities of color through this. And especially again, if you look like me, you started out, you said it has to do with trust. It has to do with trust. And why would anyone trust someone who looks like me when, when they're talking about racial trauma, because what would I know about it?
Yes, exactly. And another layer to the work that you do that is now depending on this, the grant that you just received is the sexual violence. That has a layer of racial trauma also that has not been spoken to. So bringing that out, bringing that to the forefront and educating all of us to that, I think will be a huge help for the survivors. And I know you have specific programs for the survivors. And we too work with individuals and that have experienced sexual violence and their partners and abusive partners. So what specific programs do you have that you'd like to educate us on?
Well, I think our workforce programs are really important from an equity perspective to be able to give women opportunities to get better training, to be able to, if they're working in a traditional environment of a workforce, to be able to learn how to travel up so that they can get the positions where there is more money and more opportunity for them. We also want to help support women start their own businesses. We also, in this landscape with women having to struggle with childcare and caregiving, sometimes the traditional workforce is not the right place for them. They need that flexibility. And yet, where are they getting the capital? Where are they getting the funding? Especially not only difficult for women, but even more so for women of color. So being able to wrap around women to support them in evolving those opportunities. Also, again, trying to push women into sectors where we know financially they will do better, like tech, like STEM related jobs. And we're just getting ready on November 18th. We'll be having a first National STEM Day Summit. We'll be partnering with NJIT. And it's an opportunity to be able to bring the women that are in our program and in our community who really are looking to make a shift in careers to get into a STEM related, a tech related position so that they can really change their income and change their lives, change their opportunities for themselves and their families, which is so core and important, and having support to be able to do that. But all of those programs, I said our sexual violence program is so important. I believe strongly that our racial justice programs are key. We really do need everyone to just be examining their role in making our world a better place and a more equitable place for all, and to be looking at what they've learned and what they haven't learned, what's missing in our curriculum when we're growing up. We know that Black history is not considered to be American history still and not being taught in our schools, but it's so important for us to understand that it is our history. And if you don't understand your history, then how at all can we be able to move, our culture and our environment to the ideal that we know we needed to get to?
Absolutely. So those are individualistic barriers that the society itself is facing, and we're hopefully moving towards the same direction. We have some stragglers, but I think as a society, we are moving towards a more equitable, we're moving towards a more equitable education in terms of that, but we'll see.
The work in progress for sure. And, gratefully, there are programs like yours out there that are keeping these conversations at the forefront, and organizations like ours that are keeping these conversations at the forefront, and making sure that, children, from your perspective too, that they're starting their lives, with different opportunities and, and equity and from access to health care, access to nutrition, access to all of these, what we know gives the opportunity for a full, and happy life. So we really need to support those. A lot of our programs too, I'm very proud of our programs for girls, our Leadership Academy for young girls, for 10th graders, to help them meet lots of different women in different places so that they can envision a future for themselves, maybe different from just their exposure of what their family and their school and their community puts in front of them, to be able to give them so much more to envision and dream for themselves. Our STEM positions, programs for girls are so important as well.
So
We've got a lot of work in period poverty, being able, menstrual equity, to be able to really change the landscape, working closely with the Flow Initiative and Ike Laboria and her tremendous work coming out of Hudson County, which is a statewide effort to be able to create access for all. Again, talk about an equity issue that's really impacting women being able to be at work and be at school. And, that's impacting their ability to, get ahead.
A lot of great work is being done. I know that you have to go soon, but I had just two more questions. In terms of your teenager and your girls empowerment program, if I have a teenager, I want to get her involved in the services. Can you tell me how do you get involved in the program, and what programs do you offer for the girls empowerment?
So our Empower You, our Leadership Academy is one of them for sure. It's a 10-month experience that focuses on sophomores in high school, because we know that that's really a key age for our young women thinking about their future and making future decisions in school. And that's when we do put more than 60 mentors in front of these young women so that they can see that, I mean, as we both know, there's no straight line anywhere. And it's important for a young person to really understand that, so that they can just really be open to opportunity and not be knocked down from the fact that this vision of what they thought was going to be is not, and just see that maybe this didn't work out, but look what else could be in front of me. So our Empower University is a tremendous, again, evidence-based, facilitated mentorship experience that is powerful. Our SAS Girls, which is really serious about STEM, really encourages our young women to be able to think about tech-related careers and opportunities there, STEM related. And, again, whether it's working in a tech environment or working in a chemistry lab or, wherever it is, there's just so many opportunities, coding, that girls are not naturally moved into. We actually see come 5th grade that they almost step away from those and move to more of the kind of creative arts and stay away from, and those are not the positions that bring financial security. We want to keep them in the places that they can have financial security and move towards equity. We also have programs that just introduce our young women to different careers. We just did a tremendous effort with the New Jersey Women Lawyers Association to introduce young girls to lots of different careers in the legal field, so that they could see that being a lawyer doesn't just mean one thing. There's multiple places that you can take that degree and operate. So a lot of it is really just creating a mindscape that anything is possible, that you really, and it's so important, a lot of our programs are really focused on learning how to use their voices, how to advocate for themselves, all of those skills that no matter where they end up in life, we know they're going to have to use. As we know, we're tasked with really being the caregivers. And so whether you're doing it for your child or for your elder or for yourself, you need those skills. You need those skills to ever be able to get to equity.
Because 100% maternal health is public health. If mom is okay and women are okay, that means that society is thriving. But before we end, tell people how to get in touch with you. Is it YWCA.org or is it YWCA of Northern New Jersey?
You can find us in a couple of places. Our website is YWCANNJ.org. You can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn, any of the socials, all under YWCA NNJ. And I do encourage you to do that because we have so many programs going on, and we make sure that you can access them all easily through our social media platforms.
Thank you so much. But before you leave, last question. I know that your husband is a musician. So if you're going to write a book or an album, what would the title be?
Well, I know who my drummer would be if I was making an album. Clearly, it would be my husband because he's the best. I think I would say it would be entitled Keep Going, because especially as we know as women, there's so many hurdles that are placed in front of us, and it can become so overwhelming at times to feel like, how do I get up again and stay, positive and see through the darkness too, that there is, a light around the corner. And so I think Keep Going would be the title.
Wonderful way to end. Definitely keep going, because we can change the world. Thank you so much, Helen Archontou, and thank you for joining us for this session of Partnership Live. See you next month. Bye-bye.